Equals April 9, 1940. Dawn over Narvik brought no warmth, only the grinding echo of engines across the fjord. Erik Larsen stood on the quayside, his hands frozen, watching the black shapes of German destroyers sliding into the bay like creatures from some iron abyss. The Luftwaffe roared overhead, their crosses glinting in the thin morning light. "They've come," whispered an old dock worker beside him. Erik's heart clenched. The Reich's shadow had reached Norway. Within hours, the tricolor flag was torn down, replaced by the swastika snapping cruelly in the Arctic wind. Erik's world shrank into urgency. He gathered his brother's rifle, his resolve hardening like the frozen sea. Somewhere in the smoke and confusion lay his country's soul, and he could not let it fall without a fight.
The invasion spread like fire through dry pine. Erik joined a small band of fishermen carrying rifles older than themselves. From the cliffs above Narvik, they watched plumes of smoke coil from the harbor where German ships exchanged fire with Norwegian patrol craft. The thunder rolled through the mountains. "They're burning everything," Erik muttered, gripping his rifle until his knuckles went white. In the distance, he saw the ore docks erupt in flame, the lifeblood of Norway's iron exports, now a prize for Hitler's war machine. The group moved toward the hills, the snow crunching beneath their boots. The scent of smoke and salt mingled in the cold air, a bitter reminder that their quiet homeland had become a crucible of war. None of them knew when or if it would end.
2 weeks later, strange accents filled the frozen valleys. French and British soldiers, their coats heavy and boots foreign, landed north of Narvik. Erik stared at them with a mixture of awe and disbelief. One officer, Captain Dupont, smiled grimly. "You fight with us, yes?" Erik nodded. The Allies had come. Not many, but enough to spark hope. Together they climbed into the white wilderness, where snow blinded and silence crushed all sound. Battles erupted among ridges where man and mountain collided. The cold became their greatest enemy. Rifles froze, blood stiffened before it hit the ground. Yet beneath the torment, a shared determination pulsed. Narvik would not fall quietly. Each night, by the campfire, the men spoke of home, of freedom, of what they'd left behind. Erik listened, shivering, but felt alive.
At dawn, April 28th, the attack on Bjornfell began. Snow whispered underfoot as Allied troops advanced up the slopes. Erik crouched beside a French legionnaire, heart hammering. Then came the eruption, machine guns spitting fire from rocky ledges. "Down!" Dupont shouted, as shards of ice showered around them. The echo was deafening. German mountain troops, skilled and cold-eyed, fought like ghosts among the ridges. The air reeked of cordite and fear. Erik crawled forward, firing into the blizzard of sound and smoke. By noon, the ridge belonged to neither side, but littered with the fallen. Erik's breath came ragged as he stared at the horizon, white upon white, as if the world itself mourned the blood it drank.
Days blurred into a gray eternity. Erik's fingers were numb, his beard crusted with ice. Supplies were scarce, hunger gnawed them all. Yet the spirit of defiance grew. News trickled through. The Germans faltered under the weight of their own ambition. Allied destroyers pressed into Narvik harbor, guns thundering across the fjord. Erik watched their silhouettes flash in the night, feeling the vibration through the ground. For a moment, he forgot the cold. Hope, fragile but stubborn, warmed him from within. "Narvik will be ours again," one British sailor told him, handing a cigarette. Erik nodded silently, watching the smoldering orange ember fade into darkness, as if marking the boundary between despair and faith.
May 13th, 1940. Narvik's fjord exploded into chaos. British destroyers, HMS Hardy, Hunter, and Hotspur, clashed with German ships trapped in the narrow bay. Erik and Dupont watched from a ridge as tracer rounds lit the sky red and green.
The roar of naval guns rolled like thunder through the valley. The Germans fought fiercely, but the Allies pressed harder. Flames consumed the cold surface of the water as ships listed and sank into the deep. "By God, they're sinking 'em!" shouted DuPont. Erik's heart raced. Revenge seemed tangible, shimmering in the heat of battle. The night turned to day under the glow of burning metal, a hellish beauty carved into the heart of the Arctic. For the first time, victory looked possible.
May 28th. After weeks of slaughter, the moment came. Allied troops surged down from the mountains into Narvik. Erik led a squad through shattered streets lined with charred timber. Gunfire echoed off the fjord walls. "Push forward!" shouted DuPont. By dusk, the last German defenders fled toward the Swedish border. The Norwegian flag climbed once more over a battered city. Erik stood beneath it, tears freezing on his cheeks. The people emerged from cellars, faces pale with disbelief. One woman whispered, "Is it over?" Erik looked at the smoking harbor and answered softly, "For now." In that fragile hour, victory and sorrow were intertwined, two sides of the same frozen coin.
June arrived with cruel news. France had fallen, Britain was withdrawing. Erik watched as Allied trucks moved toward the docks, engines rumbling through the fog. DuPont clasped his shoulder. "We must go. Germany is everywhere now." Erik nodded, understanding but aching. The city they had reclaimed would soon be left to fend for itself. As the last ship departed, the Norwegian fighters stood in silence atop the cliffs. The tide carried away the echoes of guns, leaving only wind and sorrow. Narvik had tasted freedom, brief and bright as a candle in the storm. Erik turned inland once more, vowing that the flame would not die, no matter the darkness ahead.
The months that followed were colder still. Under occupation, Erik joined the underground, carrying messages, guiding Allied pilots through the mountains, spreading hope one whisper at a time. The Gestapo's shadow loomed everywhere. Nights were filled with silence and fear, yet defiance burned in the hearts of villagers who risked all for freedom. In barns and fishing huts, radios crackled with distant broadcasts from London. Erik listened and believed. The war was far from over, but Narvik's spirit endured, hidden in snow-covered valleys, patient as the mountains themselves.
Years later, when the guns had finally fallen silent, Erik returned to Narvik. The scars remained, burned docks, rusted hulls, still sleeping beneath the fjord. Yet life had reclaimed the shattered streets. Children played where bombs once fell. Standing on the pier, Erik gazed across the calm water where so many had perished. "We held," he whispered. The Arctic wind brushed his face like a ghost's blessing. The battle for Narvik had been more than a fight for land. It was proof that courage could exist even in a world frozen by war. The memory would live on, as unyielding as the mountains that looked down upon them.